Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys in their DC Multiverse line, we are featuring the McFarlane Collector Edition Superman, as depicted in Action Comics #1. Okay, so I got this at my local Target, and this was a figure that I was really excited for, mostly because we don't get action figure versions of Superman's first appearance very often, if ever. I want to say off the top of my memory, I think I could only recall maybe one other figure that depicted this Superman, and I think that was in the DC Direct line many, many years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong, there might have been more than that, but we don't get Superman all that often, if ever. As he appeared in Action Comics #1 with the very, very old school Superman emblem. This figure is beautiful in package. I think McFarlane really hit it out of the ballpark in terms of the visual presentation of this. The new McFarlane Collector Edition, it comes in the larger box that we're kind of familiar with, but it kind of has a much more premium appearance with the silver trim and highlighting on the side with McFarlane Collector Edition logo on the left, and then some of the silver trim that goes around it. Also very eye-catching is the trading card holder with the DC logo right here. In the past, we'd often, this space was usually reserved for the Build-A-Figure piece. On the back, we get some nice artwork. This is a very iconic image, from Action Comics. It's Superman, hurling the automobile over his head and throwing it into, like, I think it's like a mountain. Very iconic image of the Man of Steel from back in the day, and I'm excited to check this figure out. I do have my reservations about it though. The first time I saw it in the stores, I picked it up and I'm like, I really want this, but I'm not sure about it. And then maybe like 2 weeks later, I changed my mind, decided I had to have it, so here we are. So one of the things that kind of bothers me about the figure is that it's not as accurate as I would like it to be. I know I sound like a kind of like a stickler, but like I said, we don't get this version of Superman all that often. So for me, I was kind of hoping they'd get it right the first time, because when I think of this Superman, there's certain elements I really look for, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Nonetheless, it's still a very beautiful action figure despite my gripes. The head sculpt I think is fantastic. And the fact that it comes with a fun chain accessory I think is the icing on the top of the cake. And alright, let's get started. First impressions, beautiful looking figure. The trading card stand here is a nice accessory, as is, prominently the features, the image here. The nice thing with this is that the trading card is actually decent. I've been complaining so much about the trading cards we've gotten in the past. I kind of feel like McFarlane kind of just phones it in. The nice thing with this figure is that you have two different stand options. You get the standard display base right here, but then if you want to kind of pose Superman so it looks like he's hovering or flying, you get the flight stand on our left. It's clear, really nice. Oh, the figure looks great, but I do have a couple of issues with it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This is awesome. It's so cool to get this accessory. All right, first off, let's take a look at the chain accessory. All right, so this is really cool because if you're familiar with Action Comics #1 or any of like the really iconic images of like old school vintage Superman, you'll kind of remember there's the certain panels where they kind of describe Superman's powers. You know, he could like, he's faster than a speeding bullet, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, there's the one panel where it shows like bullets ricocheting off his chest. And then there's that other very like iconic image of Superman kind of like bursting out of the chains, which this I kind of feels like is a callback to that, which is awesome. So, you know, if you're a kid or even if you're a grown adult, you know, you can imagine Superman being wrapped up in chains, you know, like, and nothing can hold him back. And much like the image in the comic book panel, you know, he kind of arches his back, and then he kind of like, his fists curl up, and as you can see, the quality control on this figure, it's not the greatest. His arm just kind of popped off, which is unfortunate, unless it wasn't fully inserted to begin with. Wow, that's disappointing. Whoa, this is weird. Okay, so this might be an issue on my figure. Hopefully you don't have this problem, but yeah, the ball socket on mine is really loose. It just kind of like pops in, and then it easily pops out. So kind of disappointed in that. But back to what I was talking about. Some of you might remember that image of Superman, you know, chest out, arms and fists curled in, and again, his hand just pops out again. He's kind of like this, and then the chains is kind of that. There's that image, and the chains is kind of like just breaks off. So it's really cool that they kind of give us that accessory to kind of recreate that image. As for the figure itself, like I said, I'm in love with the head. This is horrible. The head sculpt, it's beautiful. I think it kind of captures the right visage of Superman for the era this represents. You know, it's not too young. This kind of passes for what Superman might have looked like back in the day. You know, if I had to place his age, you know, this is probably like late 20s, early 30s for that time period. In real life, at least to me, it seems like every generation seems to be younger and younger. Like for me, when I was a kid and a freshman in high school, the seniors who were 18, they looked like full grown ass adults with mustaches and everything. Whereas nowadays, like 18-year-old, you know, senior in high school might pass off looking like a 13-year-old. So back in the day, you know, this really does capture what Superman as an adult would have looked like, or at least in my opinion. The body is nice. We're seeing a lot of reuse here. And one of the dead giveaways also, besides the very specific torso, is, you know, the boots here. You know, we've seen these legs before. It even features the modern Superman panel lining along the legs. So we are getting a lot of reuse on this action figure. It's not like a completely new sculpt, which is forgivable. You know, we do see a lot of reuse in action figures today. But hopefully yours doesn't have the same issues as mine does with this arm just kind of popping out. But let's examine them closely. Again, a wonderful head sculpt. I think this is probably in my top 5 of McFarlane's Superman heads. We've gotten so many Superman action figures, but this head is beautiful. The cape is nice. I've said this in many videos. I do prefer a much more neutral cape where it flows downward. This cape has, you know, it's a little bit more dynamic, flowing off to the left, which is all right. The material is somewhere in between. It's a little bit thicker than I'd like, and a little bit more weighty. You know, some of the capes we've gotten in the past have been a lot thinner. You might recognize this torso, as I've said before, on other Superman figures. It's a nice one. I like this one a lot because it looks like he's actually wearing a bodysuit. You can see the wrinkles and folds across his abdomen. One thing that kind of bothers me with this figure, though, is that, like with some of the older McFarlane figures, I kind of feel like the cut mid-torso, above the abdomen, they could have done a cleaner job. It looks... I understand that they're trying to conform to the shapes of the muscles, but it just looks kind of off, in my opinion. You know, I kind of feel like it leaves too much of a gap, and it's kind of a little bit unsightly. let's take a look at some of the older, for example, like here's an older McFarlane figure. This is probably from the first year. And you can see, even though the cut's kind of weird, it's not that gappy. Whereas this one, you know, it kind of exceeds over, and you get these weird shadows. Again, I'm just being nitpicky here. I would have liked a much cleaner look, but this is kind of forgivable. Here's his utility belt. Again, these are the much more modern Superman legs. So my issue with this figure is that it's not perfect to what it's supposed to represent. As you can see with the original cover to Action Comics #1, the Superman emblem is very, very large. It covers a good chunk of his chest. Whereas here, it's a very, very small thumbprint. You know, I kind of wish the logo was a lot larger. It lacks the prominence as the old school image. And one thing that also bothers me is that he has the red boots, whereas this one, you know, they're not colored at all. So, but then again, it's been a while since I've actually looked through one of the reprinted comics of Action Comics #1. For all I know is maybe on the cover the boots are red, and maybe in the interior it's blue. But I kind of wish the figure reflected more so the artwork than, you know, than this one does here. But that's not to take anything away from it. I think it's a beautiful figure. And I'm just being, you know, a stickler, and I'm just kind of like nitpicking a little. But otherwise, I think this is great. On a scale of 1 to 10, despite the flaw that my arm's kind of loose, I think this is a solid 8.5. It's awesome. I do wish it was a little bit more accurate to what we see here. You know, maybe in the future, McFarlane gets super crazy and gives us like a box set with an automobile plus the little guy on the side. You know, but that's asking for too much. But overall, I think you're getting an excellent package and an excellent value. The chain accessory is great. You can use this across multiple lines besides the McFarlane one. You know, you want to bring it over into your Marvel Legends and wrap this around the Hulk. Go for it. I think it's awesome. So yeah, great action figure, great value. Again, my only disappointment is just some of the visual aesthetics, like the emblem and the boots. But otherwise, I think it's an awesome, awesome purchase. If you see it at your store and you're a huge Superman fan, I think you definitely need it just because of what it represents. It represents Superman's first appearance, and, you know, we don't get that version of the character in action figure form all that often. So it's well worth getting. All right, so let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.